Russia is accusing Ukraine of more drone attacks in its territory, this time on an oil refinery in southern Russia where a fire broke out. It comes a day after Moscow was hit by a drone. The blame game continuing today on who was behind it. Kyiv says it had nothing to do with the attack. Russia has been launching waves of so-called kamikaze drones on Ukraine since last year, terrorizing civilians and damaging infrastructure.
Russian airstrikes hit the Ukrainian capital for the 17th time in the month of May. Across the country, 4 people were killed and dozens injured. Ukraine's president seemed to criticize public safety officials after the deadly wave.
I want the local officials responsible for certain communities and territories to hear me now. Shelters in cities have to be accessible. People should know when and how the number and availability of shelters will increase. This is the responsibility of specific officials.
There was also a rare attack on Russia's capital. Officials say dozens of drones hit Moscow, wounding 2 people. President Vladimir Putin condemned the raid.
The Kyiv regime has chosen a different path, the path of trying to frighten Russia, frighten the citizens of Russia, and of strikes on residential buildings.
A Ukrainian presidential aide denied direct responsibility for the drone strikes, but welcomed the site and predicted more to come. U.S. officials said their support for Ukraine's fight ended at its borders.
Look, as it relates to the drone attacks that we saw in Moscow, we've been very clear. We're going to gather information and see exactly what happened. So just want to be very clear about that. But look, we do not support attacks inside of Russia.
But whatever Washington's official stance, actions will speak louder than words. The U.S. is expected to announce a large aid package for Ukraine this week, part of which will be additional ammunition for drones.
Drones could make all the difference in the war in Ukraine. That's the view of one of Ukraine's specialized drone brigades. Both sides in the conflict have developed unmanned aerial vehicles, with Russia using Iranian-made drones to regularly bomb cities like Kyiv. Our next report looks at how Ukraine is using drones to outsmart its invaders.
A safe distance from the hell that is Bakhmut, Valentin is cradling the eyes of the Ukrainian army on his shoulder. This Leleka drone takes its name from the local word for stork, and it's now a much valued asset to Ukrainian fighters engaged in trench warfare as it spies on their enemy from above.
The success of a certain operation may depend on the work and efficiency of the UAV unit. This work carries much responsibility.
Reconnaissance drones, also known as UAVs, have picked up images like this. Russian infantry throwing a blanket over their howitzer in Bakhmut, or Russian trucks hiding in the forest.
It saves lives. Either you go ahead blind and walk into a trap, or you get guidance from the sky.
Then there are the attack drones, cheap, nimble and packed with explosives. They're capable of landing a deadly blow on unsuspecting combatants. If Lelekas are the eyes of the army, these are the fists.
A drone which costs $300 and can be bought in any hobby shop is capable of destroying a tank. Our team has done it many times. We have destroyed the enemy's tanks, heavy military equipment, and personnel. It's a very effective gadget.
No wonder the Ukrainian army is said to be investing heavily in such low-cost kamikaze drones, and the teams needed to operate them. Soldiers here claim these weapons, unlike others, are impervious to Russia's jamming systems.
We see a tank driving, we fit the armour-piercing explosive to this part and let it fly. When we see infantry, we fit the drone with shrapnel explosives and we fly it. If it's a building, we also fit it with shrapnel explosive and we fly inside the building.
This may just be a demonstration today, but the fighters of the 35th Marine Brigade believe such tools of modern warfare will prove decisive in the counter-offensive.
We're now joined by Arthur Holland Michel, researcher and journalist focusing on artificial intelligence, unmanned systems, surveillance and other emerging security technologies. We've seen drones managing to come really close to their targets, even those as protected as the Kremlin in Moscow. How hard is it to detect a drone before it approaches its target?
It can be incredibly difficult. A lot of the air defense systems that exist in most countries are designed to detect large, fast-moving aircraft, such as manned fighter jets. Drones are small, they fly very low to the ground in many cases, and they fly very slowly, which makes them very, very hard to detect. If one can detect them, it is often when they are already very close to their target, which doesn't give you a lot of time to respond in trying to, say, intercept the drone or jam it or shoot it down.
So there are surveillance drones and attack drones. Which ones are more crucial for Ukraine to have?
In a way, it's the drones that provide intelligence to other weapons. Since these drones are often quite small and sometimes they can be quite vulnerable, I mean, a lot of them do get shot down, they're limited in the effects that they can actually deliver in terms of putting warheads on targets. But if a drone can pass intelligence from its video to, say, an artillery unit or to a tank, that can actually, in many cases, have a much greater impact on the ground.
So who's better equipped when it comes to drone warfare, Russia or Ukraine?
That's hard to say. In some cases, it's not necessarily about the quality of the drone so much as their production capacity. Sometimes having a small number of very, very good drones is not as useful as having a very, very large quantity of drones that are kind of low order. And it's a little hard to say, both countries say they're ramping up their production capacity. There's information about Iran delivering drones to Russia, but it's a little hard to get a close grasp on that. That being said, I wouldn't say that there is a huge disparity, that one or the other side is sort of decades ahead of the other in terms of drone technology.
But tell us, how precise of a weapon are fighter drones? Because when it comes to precision alternatives to conventional weapons, are they an alternative?
They can potentially have quite high precision, especially because of this intelligence gathering quality that they have. They can fly over a target for a long time, gathering intelligence before conducting a strike. But their precision goes down when you're talking about long-range strikes and the enemy defending itself, for example, jamming the drones. And that will, in many cases, send the drones off course, in which case their precision goes way down and they're just much less effective. But yes, it's generally said that drones are quite precise. Also, though, it's because they have much smaller warheads than, say, a large missile or an artillery barrage, and so that naturally lends itself to a greater degree of precision.
Okay, you say quite precise. So is there going to be a day where we don't need to send actual people, soldiers, to the front line?
I guess you're talking here about artificial intelligence, and there are two parts of that. One is the technology definitely isn't ready. I don't see it being ready for quite a long time. And the reason I say that is because military commanders, they want to know what their forces are going to do in battle. They want to have some level of control. And artificial intelligence still isn't predictable enough to do that. I don't think there would still be that level of trust. That being said, artificial intelligence is emerging in all sorts of sort of smaller incremental ways in warfare, which can potentially be used by commanders to kind of remove themselves further from the decision-making loop while still having some level of control. But fully autonomous sort of, killer robots, that's still a little bit in the future.
OK, interesting insights there from Arthur Holland-Michel, researcher and AI expert. Thank you.